back to the show. My name is Charles. I'm your host. And today I'd like to talk about tools that serve us. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I think that there are certain tools that we can use in life in our recovery that will benefit us in several different areas. So I have a few to talk about. So, for example, the first one that I want to talk about is an app. It's called Meetup. Now, let me just go through kind of how I've used it in the past as well. And so it's a really interesting app. It's based on your GPS location, and you can go on there and search whatever kind of group that you're interested in. So for me, I've personally used it a few times. Now, the first time is when I was working out in LA and I didn't really know a lot of people. So I used it as kind of a way to meet people and have some, make some friends. So I searched up dodgeball and I found this group that goes to a park. They play a game of dodgeball. They have a quick, workout and then go about their day. And, for me, it was a really interesting way to feel comfortable in my new community, to meet some like-minded people and do something beside go to a bar or something, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a new, different sort of way to meet people and make friends. And then you all kind of have that shared common interest right off the bat because you're all there for the same group, the dodgeball in this example. Um, I also met one of my really good friends. We're still friends to this day. We met at that dodgeball thing. I've also used the same app in a different way where um, I found a group that goes and plays pool together, and they're all in recovery. It's a sober group, right? And they meet up and they go to a pool hall together and hold each other accountable and, have fun and remember why they like to play the game of pool and all that kind of stuff. So, that was also a way to meet like-minded people who are clean and sober and enjoy playing pool and can become friends and all that stuff. But it also has a little bit of like almost like exposure therapy kind of along with it because you're getting back, at least for myself, I was getting back into an environment where I used and drank and all kinds of stuff, so I needed to have those extra people there. I needed to have that accountability and all that stuff. So that's kind of a couple ways to use that particular tool that I found super helpful. I think another way to use that particular tool also, like if you're trying to find a new hobby, I think that's a perfect tool, right? Because you could search on there, pottery, painting, whatever you're into, right? Whatever you've wanted to try. And then there's a group that will meet up and do it. And I mean, they had groups for everything on there. So I think that that's a really interesting tool that can serve us in a lot of different ways in our life and recovery. And it can kind of help through, different chapters also. Um, we might initially use it to just meet some other sober people and do something fun, right? We might also use it to, develop a new hobby, like I was talking about. So there's a lot of different uses for it. But I think the important part is to get out there, get out there and experience that brighter side of life again, because for too long we kind of, hid in the shadows, and when we were in our active addiction and, we weren't really able to kind of experience that side of life for a while, at least not in the same way. So that's definitely a great tool. I also want to talk about meetings. So meetings have, at least in my recovery, they've had many different uses, right? I started out doing my 90 and 90, 90 meetings in 90 days. And, during that time, it was very much about like, let me figure out like, how to be in a room with other people and feel normal and not feel like I'm, judged by everyone. I used to have this one. It was kind of silly. I would always feel nervous because I'd be like, am I doing something weird with my mouth? Like people are looking at me, they're judging me, I feel uncomfortable. But the reality is, and what I came to learn is that every person in that room, they're all stuck in their own head about their own stuff, right? They're not thinking about me and the thing I'm doing with my jaw and blah, 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 all the little anxiety things, right? So I think that was helpful for me to feel more comfortable. So that's kind of like the initial use of meetings. Later on, it turned into being able, for me, being able to sit in a meeting with a little more time under my belt, right? And just get outside my own head for a bit, you know, sit there and I would actively listen to whoever is sharing, right? I'm not on my phone. I'm not talking. I'm not doing this. I'm looking at the person who's sharing. I'm hearing what they're saying and I'm feeling what they're saying, putting myself in their shoes. And what I found is that I gained some empathy. I gained a common some common ground, that we're both in, moving along this journey together and everything. And it also kind of got me out of my own head for a bit and allowed me to, feel for another person, and then usually I would leave that meeting feeling much better, and sometimes it would even help to, kind of reframe some of the, you know, issues or problems that I was thinking of originally. And I would leave them saying, wow, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I remember back then that was worse. I need to be grateful, and then it brings me to this place of gratitude. It brings me to this place of, wanting to continue to push forward and, you know, and come at this whole recovery thing from a place of curiosity, right? I was curious as to how I messed my life up so badly, so quick, and more importantly, I wasn't dwelling on the negative, but more importantly, I was focused on, from a curiosity standpoint, how can I learn enough to never return to that again? What do I need to study? What do I need to read? What do I need to experience? All that, and I think that that fit perfectly with, meetings and them being used in these different ways as well. And then the last one that I want to highlight as well, I actually had Will on the show, Will Snyder, from Colorado Artists in Recovery. But I wanted to highlight their group real quick. They started out. They still do a lot of music, but they do a lot of different like music classes. So, for example, Will teaches how to play the piano, and then you can learn other instruments. And they have a they put on a show at the end, right? And play some music and, of the new instruments that they've learned and everything, which is really cool. Kind of gets back to that whole hobby thing, giving us a passion, a reason to get out of bed, and something we enjoy, something that we can even turn to as a tool if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling depressed. We don't really know how to say it. We don't know what it is, but we can feel it. And playing music, that can be a really therapeutic way to get that out. Writing song lyrics, right? Journaling, even, whatever it is, you know. But CARE, Colorado Artists in Recovery, they also do like yoga. They do some different art therapy classes. So I think those are also some tools that serve us well in a lot of different areas, because maybe we start out there just doing some art therapy and then it kind of develops into, oh, let me learn piano, right? I've always wanted to be musical, and then we start writing our own music, and then it can become a very like therapeutic kind of thing for us where we write our own song lyrics and play the piano and perform it even for our close circle. Or, I mean, there's a sense of release from that, being able to share on a deep level musically. I think that's probably why there's so many musicians in recovery who write songs about recovery and addiction and, all kinds of stuff from their past. So um, I think those have been some pretty impactful tools that, definitely serve recovery, even today in my recovery 10 years down the road. and it'll continue to as well because I'm sure in the future I'll be looking up groups there for stuff to do with my kids and other people and their kids and this and that, and I mean it's endless. So um yeah, I hope you guys look into some of these resources. And again, it's an app called Meetup. That's the first one. And then Colorado Artists in Recovery, and then meetings and any fellowship that you want, really. And the last thing that I'll say about the fellowships is there's also a very good social component to meetings where the fellowship itself, and by the way, when I say fellowship, I mean like, Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship, Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship, right? So those fellowships, they'll go out and do different fun things together also. So once you find a meeting that you enjoy, you're comfortable, you like the people, you feel confident to share and all that stuff, you can make that your home group, and then that can be something that you return to and go out and have coffee with them after the meeting, go get some dinner, go do something fun on the weekend. It can develop into more of a you know filling that social need, because I let go of 90% of my friends when I got into recovery. So that can also be a good way to refill that and help to have a healthy social life also. So I hope you guys try some of those. And if you do, let me know. Post a comment, send me an email. And if you have any questions about them, or you're looking for maybe a specific type of tool to assist where you're currently at or anything, just send me an email. It'll be down in the description. So thanks for stopping in. See you later.